Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Because Money podcast. I'm Jackson Middleton, and I'm one of your hosts, joined as always, and we travel in threes. There's three of us, and it's Rob Engen, Sandy Martin in black and white, and myself, and we're happy to be here. And tonight, I think I gave it a real clever name. The podcast tonight is called Homebuyers Plan. Really took a long time to think about that, but that's what we named it, and surprise, surprise, we will be talking about the home buyer's plan. So here we go, Rob. Let's kick this off in good style.
Sure. So like we talked about, it's a home buyer's plan, and what this is for first-time home buyers to kind of get them some help with a down payment, and they can withdraw money from their RRSP and use that towards a down payment. Now they have to pay the money back, and Sandy can talk a little bit about the rules behind that. The program, it was launched in 1992, and latest statistics say it has been used about 2.5 million times over the years. So it doesn't sound like a lot, and it looks like it's used just over 100,000 times a year by first-time home buyers. So I don't know if that's a trend, as in it's not a very popular option, or you can't withdraw enough money to make a dent in your down payment now because our real estate prices are so high, or I just don't have any money in my RSP. I don't know what the case is, but the trend looks like it's declining by 10, 20,000 people a year. So I guess we're going to talk about, is it a good idea to use, and what are some of the ins and outs of using the home buyer's plan. And Sandy said she has used the plan, or HBP, before, and maybe you can talk a little bit about your experience and what those rules are.
Well, I'll do the basic rundown of the rules first, I think. Obviously, RSPs are treated as individual things. So as a couple, you can withdraw $50,000, but as an individual, you can take out $25,000 from your RRSP as long as it's within 90 days of the purchase of your home, and then you have to do the withdrawal within 30 days of actually closing on your home. So there's this little window of time where you actually have to take the money out. But if you take it out, you don't have to, show a receipt that you used it for your house. You could just use the withdrawal for, RRSP type withdrawal type things. Oh, that was incoherent. I'm sorry. It's not a good beginning, is it? Once you take the money out, then you don't have any repayments the following calendar year. So you have kind of a whole grace period depending on what time of year you purchased it. The following year after that, so 2 years later, essentially, you need to start repaying. 1/15 is the minimum amount because you have 15 years to repay. If you don't repay, so let's say you take out $25,000, you're going to owe $1,666 every year. You repay it by contributing to your RRSP. It doesn't have to be the same RRSP account if you don't like that bank anymore or whatever, but you recontribute to RRSPs. You don't get to claim it as a deduction because now you're putting it back into your RRSP. If you don't repay it, if you don't make an RRSP contribution at all, or if for some reason it turns out to be worth your while to not include it as part of your home buyer's plan repayment, then you have to pay income tax on that $1,666.
And an interesting thing I read about that, Sandy, was 35% of the home buyer's plan, or of people in the home buyer's plan, do not repay it per year. 35% of the eligible people aren't repaying that per year, so they're taking it that's coming on to they have to report that as taxable income.
Mm-hmm. And I don't think that $1,666 is going to be too onerous of a tax burden, because obviously you don't have to pay. You pay less than that back in taxes. I don't think that 35% of people have sat down and done the math and said, it's really in our best interest to take that as income and pay taxes on it. I don't think it was really a calculated decision. If I can make paint in broad strokes, as I typically do.
And I'm just going to jump in and start talking about the actual practical application of it. From my experience as a mortgage broker over the last 7 years, primarily dealing with first-time home buyers, I can honestly say that a lot of first-time home buyers just don't have RSPs to use. They just there's nothing there. There's nothing in the investments. There's nothing in the RSPs that it's not an option. I would say the majority of first-time home buyers don't even have a down payment saved up. They're borrowing it from the bank of mom and dad, which then makes me think, okay, should they be purchasing, let's say you're a young couple, you're about to buy your first house, mom and dad are going to lend you $50,000 as a down payment, and you know you're going to be buying your house after 90 days. Do you borrow the money from your parents as a gift, purchase the RSPs, which triggers then, you know, a tax refund, and then take the money out and basically make money off the down payment and use the home buyers plan? Is that tricking the system? Is that a game? Is that what should happen?
Oh, now see, now you're putting in a new wrinkle, because when we were talking about this originally, we're borrowing from the bank of mom and dad. If you're borrowing money from your parents to use as your down payment, and you get the gift letter and you say, oh no, I never have to repay it, but you really do, then you're gaming the system whether you put that money into an RRSP or not. And let's not pretend that you're not. So if you can't afford it, or if your parents are giving it to you as, you know, part of your early inheritance or whatever, that's a whole other kettle of fish than the home buyers.
Okay, well let's say you've got it's not registered, it's just in a TFSA. You have $50,000 in TFSA. You know you're going to buy a house in 6 months. Do you buy the RSP to get the tax refund just so that you can go and withdraw it and then pay it back over 15 years? With 35% of people not paying it back, is this just some kind of a loophole? Like, should I guess the one article, I think Rob Carrick was, why should the home buyers plan be wound down? You know, is it actually a viable program, or is it being used for what the government wants it to be used for? Or does that matter?
I think and he quoted in that article, like the average person or couple is using about just under $10,000 for it. So it's not like everybody's going out and doing what you described with the $50,000 down payment from the gift of, or from the bank of mom and dad. Now I don't know too many first-time home buyers or in that kind of early 20s, mid-20s that have that kind of RSP room either. So there's another wrinkle in that plan. But I don't see anything wrong with it. I don't really think it's a loophole. I think if you can take advantage of something like that, we've talked about that over how many episodes of optimizing your finances versus the practicality of it, and is it going to be that much of a pain to do all this? Like Sandy said, you got that short window, 90 days, and then 30 days after closing, and then you got to repay it. Are you going to repay it all right away? So there's a bit of mechanics that goes along with it. But I don't think you're cheating the system anyway.
And
go ahead, Sandy.
I have two things I need to say. So for my 7 years of mortgage lending inside the big bad bank, I very rarely saw gift for mom and dad. Like, we had to write gift letters very rarely, and it was almost always from their own funds. And obviously you've got to go back and verify that it's been in their account for X number of months or whatever. So I think there's a self-selection bias here with the kind of anecdotal statistics we can bring up. So there were people using it all the time. Like, I had to fill out those home buyer withdrawals quite frequently. And then the other thing I was going to talk about is, if you do, choosing to access the home buyers plan and to kind of access it through what you would call the loophole, it gives you more choice than if you weren't going to do it at all. So if you can either repay it in 1/15 amounts, or repay it in full, or not repay it at all, you have the choice to do that kind of each year. So you're able to sort of optimize your tax burden a little bit every year that you either claim a home buyer's repayment or an RSP contribution or nothing. So it does give you more choice. It's not like you're locking into one choice ahead of time.
Yeah, and let's not forget that by actually using your down payment money to purchase RSPs in 1 year, you would be triggering a pretty good tax rebate, wouldn't you? Wouldn't you be getting a good tax refund or whatever?
If you were going from like 0 to 25,000 in your RRSP, I would think so, yeah.
Yeah. So that's free. And then what you do is you would take that money and then put that the next year directly towards your RRSPs. I don't know. Like, you can kind of start a bit of a wheel turning. That's what I've read, and I've read it as strategy. It kind of felt dirty, but then again, why not use whatever's at your disposal? Like, go for it. But
I guess my problem with the home buyers plan, and now that we have a tax-free savings account, I think even more so, is RSPs are meant for retirement savings. And so I think what Rob Carrick talked about in his article was that we value home ownership now over retirement savings. Houses are coming before retirement, and so with 35% not repaying the loan, you're basically robbing from yourself down the road, right? I mean, with a tax-free savings account, that's kind of what it's meant for. The tax-free savings account is meant for shorter-term savings. You've got a window here of, say in 2-3 years I want to own a home. I can save in my tax-free savings account towards it. Whereas should young people even be saving in an RSP? At a lower tax bracket.
Those are two separate questions.
Yes.
I keep dividing everything into two. Obviously, if you're not making very much income, it doesn't make any sense to transfer that income into the future in the idea that it'll be taxed at a lower rate in retirement. So that's one question. I mean, you really have to keep your eye on, I'm quoting myself from a post that I wrote for you, you have to keep your eye on your actual tax rate. So, that's when you're making, you don't just blindly make RSP contributions because you sort of walked into the bank on February 15th and said, I better buy an RSP. That's not really the optimal strategy. But at the same time, I don't agree that necessarily because 35% of people aren't repaying their RSP, like their homebuyers plan, that means that they're stealing from their own retirement. It very well could be, but it could also mean that those people are just choosing to claim it as an RSP contribution. So I would like to see, I think I would like to see those numbers in context.
Come on. They're going on vacation. They're buying new living room furniture.
I mean, obviously, we can say generally with the rest of the kind of the personal finance media, like, oh my goodness, Canadians have so much debt, and there's going to be a housing crash, and all these kinds of, and that's okay. I mean, I think probably the general trend, everyone would probably agree that the general trend is people aren't being as wise with their savings as they could be, or with their spending plan as they could be, right? But I don't know that the very fact of the homebuyers plan existence within the package of the RRSP, which is meant for retirement savings, means that the government is allowing people through policy to put home ownership before retirement. I don't think that those, I think you can see that as a general trend, but I don't think that those two things necessarily connect logically. I could be wrong, though.
But a lot's changed since 1992, right? I mean, that's when that's when the homebuyers plan first came to be. And, like I said, now we've got tax-free savings accounts. Housing prices are how many times bigger than they were in 1992, where, it's $25,000 even, what is that, putting a dent on a home in Toronto or Vancouver?
That's probably a 5% down payment.
Right.
Realistically, I mean, that's the, I want to jump in and say, I saw this article this morning on Globe and Mail. 24% of Canadians see their homes as the main source of their retirement income. I didn't know a house could be an income. Like, what do you turn it into are you getting a reverse mortgage on it? Are you qualifying for a HELOC and then funding your retirement through, are you going to sell it and move? But I mean,
I think that's probably it. The traditional sense of selling your house and moving or downsizing to a smaller home. But I think we found the trends over the years has been that that's not the case.
No, it's, I don't know. So I guess maybe just pointed question. What are your thoughts? Are RRSPs a good thing for young people and their finances?
I think it makes sense in certain cases, like when we talked about before the show. If you're getting an employer match, I mean, that's about the only case where it's pretty tough to turn that down. I mean, a 50 to 100% return. I mean, quite frankly, it even beats credit card debt. And I don't really want to go there because credit cards are evil. And
you just gave everybody with credit card debt holding a balance an excuse to invest in their RSPs. Thanks, Rob.
Well, sure. Well, I mean, again, if you're looking optimally, 50% return beats a 19% credit card interest rate, right? I mean, obviously there's a whole other issue with credit card debt and why you're getting into it in the first place. But so I guess when we talk about younger people, well, we typically say, well, they're not making as high an income as they will when they're in their 40s or 50s. So it doesn't make any sense to contribute to your RSP. But I think there's another trend or something else there where you need to start some habits of putting some money away that you're not going to take out in a year or two, right? Like I think Bruce Sellery talked about that. He was talking about that on Twitter today, and he wrote the Moolala Guide to Rocking Your RSP, and he said, you know, tax-free savings accounts are great, but they're for putting in money Tuesday or Sunday and taking it out on Tuesday. That's how people treat them, right? Whereas your RSP kind of has that stigma around, you know, this is locked in, I'm not going to touch it till retirement. And so I think these programs like Lifelong Learning and Homebuyers Plan are just giving us access, especially if you don't really have to repay it, or just giving us access to that money that we probably shouldn't have. We put it away for a reason, and regardless of tax rates and that sort of thing, you put it away for a reason, so it'd be there for you in retirement.
So what I'm getting a sense of then is that my battery is running low. We shouldn't be buying a house at all because we should be putting money into our RSP. Like if we have any money to save, we shouldn't be saving it towards a house. We should be saving it for our retirement. Is that sort of the sense? And I'm just going to duck out of the frame for a minute to actually. Well,
then I'm going to just throw out the question, do people actually save for retirement? Like, it's, from my experience in dealing with, especially the first-time home buyers, even like, you know, the upgrade clients, you know, moving from their first to their second home, it seems that everybody is financing their properties at 95% loan to value, 5% down. They'll sell a house, they'll have equity, they'll keep it out, they'll consolidate, they'll pay off their debt, and they'll buy the upgrade house with 5% down on double income, and nobody's really saving money. It seems that the people that have money have a lot of money, and then there's the rest of Canada who just doesn't really have anything. That's my personal sense from, you know, probably dealing with over, you know, 2,000 applications a year for many years. And the homebuyers plan, although I admit it's a great plan, I think it works, I like it, I've maybe executed it 20 times. It doesn't happen that often. People don't really use it.
And you're saying it's more about lack of funding than, or not?
I'm just saying it's lack of savings, lack of any financial planning or knowledge, or even caring. Like the amount of people that come, like, is that just my sense, or is, because I know we talk about finances. I know we're on the Because Money podcast, which deals with personal finance, so we talk about optimizing our personal finance, but is the average typical young Canadian even interested in thinking about this kind of thing?
And just to go back to Sandy's question, I'm not saying I'm not saying value retirement even in your 20s over you know, home ownership, but you know, I'm talking about establishing some habits that you're putting away some money, even if it's 2%, 3%, 4%, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be, you know, 15 or 20% of your salary, but some habits to put away some money that you're not going to raid, you know, next month, because it's so easy to do it in a tax-free savings account or your regular savings or your checking account. Yeah,
I don't disagree with that. I think I have a very strong, one of many, pet peeves, and it's I very much dislike the cult of the meat. Oh, I don't want to paint the media all with one brush. I don't like this cult of everybody in Canada isn't saving enough and nobody is smart about their money and the debt levels are rising. I keep using the same voice. This is the second time in only this podcast that I've gone, it doesn't bode well. I don't like it, not because it's not true. There are so many people that don't pay any attention to things that they really should be paying attention to. I just dislike that. I don't know what it is, if it's just the feeling of someone on high shaking their finger at everybody in Canada for being a total idiot and like a nut bar for not saving, when people are just trying, for the most part, people are trying to do their best. They don't necessarily have all the right tools, or they're not maybe talking to the right people about it. But I just think people shouldn't always go, the regular everyday Canadians should stop having this feeling that someone in the Globe and Mail is telling them they're an idiot, because that's the headline every day.
But I guess, you know, with no secret, my family is, my wife and I are trying to save $13,780 in 2014, and we're blogging 52 weeks through it. So we're putting out a blog and trying to come up with a unique way to save money every single week. And I'll be honest, the amount of people that have contacted us privately and said, man, we're terrible. We don't do any of this. Thanks so much for doing it. Thanks so much for the ideas. I just get a sense that it's not lack of desire, it's just lack of action, lack of execution. And people, they just don't know what to do. And like, the truth is until I started, within the last few months, I've really started taking responsibility for my personal finance. I'm working with Sandy as a, fee-only planner. Somebody asked me, when do you plan on retiring? And I thought that was a really stupid question. Because why? Oh, I thought it was you, but I just didn't want to say that. You said, when are you going to retire? And I'm like, I'm never going to retire. I have never, ever thought of retiring. Like, not working? Why would I not work? You got to work. I don't save any money. I spend more than I have. How in the world would I ever retire? I'm just already to the point where it's like, forget it. Nobody's going to. And then, of course, then my mentality becomes that if that's the way it is with me, that's the way it is with everybody else. You just kind of assume everyone's like you. Maybe that's why I'm coming from that bias, but I don't know. I've been really encouraged by the people that have reached out and talked with my wife and I about the challenge and what it means to them, and we're just we're having fun doing it. But I think there's a lot of people who just have no idea, and if they're looking, this homebuyers plan makes sense. If you're looking to save up for a house, put some money in RSPs, develop the habits to save, and then you can use it for a down payment on a house. And I like it because I like that idea of encouraging people to build the habits.
But here's what I think happens is that, and maybe this was true before tax-free savings accounts were introduced, but I think that, a young couple will go into the bank and they're qualifying for their mortgage, or they're going to their mortgage broker and qualifying for their mortgage, Jackson.
Thank you.
And that mortgage broker, that banker is going to ask them, well, what are you going to do for a down payment? Well, I have this much, and I can't qualify. I can only qualify for $300,000 and I want this $400,000 house. So then they ask the question, do you have any money in your RSP? And that's where people, I think, get led into the home buyer plan. It's not for the willful act of I'm going to save money for a down payment, and I think the best vehicle for me to do so is in the home buyer's plan. I think they're getting talked into it through the bank to say, oh, you've got some money in your RSP. Why not use that this way? Sandy, is that true?
Well, maybe. I don't know. But here's the thing. Let's talk about somebody with a limited savings ability. So what's the best thing for them to do? It's to save up for, if home ownership makes sense for them, if they're not buying into a wildly inflated market, et cetera, et cetera. If they want to save up for a house and it's the prudent thing to do, they should be saving up their money. If they don't have enough money to save both for an enormous retirement and for a house, which means they probably can't max out their RRSP contribution rate anyway, why wouldn't they contribute some of their money in an RRSP towards their down payment on a house, have it grow tax-free, have it be tax-free when they put it in, and then have it be tax-free as you repay it, if you're able to repay it. Well, the rest of the money stays in there for your actual eventual retirement. When people talk about the RRSP being passé because homes are worth way more than they used to be, well, they're not in my town. The house that I upgraded to after my first house was less than $200,000. So $25,000 or $50,000 would go quite a long way to buy a house in rural Canada anyway. So I don't think, if you can't max out if you don't have enough money to max out your tax-free savings account and your RRSP and save separately for a down payment, the RRSP is the best place to save for it. The end. Go ahead, Jackson, sorry.
I'm jumping in with the Twitter. Friend of the show, Noel D'Souza, jumped in, and he's actually tweeted 3 times. Because money, I like the HBP certain cases. Perhaps if the person has a pension plan, $50K is a pretty good start against a mortgage. He then says, #because money. I think I've said this before. people need a plan. So the HBP can be good if it is part of that long-term plan, and I agree. And then he says, I think in direct response to me buffaloing and buffooing at retirement, he says the issue with planning and needing to work forever is that sometimes life throws you a curveball and you can't. Hashtag because life.
It's true.
He's picked up on the prepositional use of the word because, and I appreciate your tweets and your opinion. Thanks, Noel.
I think your answer was you were going to retire at 80, wasn't it? Isn't that what you were going to say?
I think it was probably, okay, 80. I don't plan on living past 65, but okay, 80, sure. But yeah, I've always thought 65 was really old.
Yeah, it's not anymore. Like
but it's not anymore.
There was a poll that came out today that said, the trends that more people in the 55 to 65 age group are saying they are going to. I think the question was, are you going to work when you're 66? Are you going to be working? And it was about half that said they would be. And of that, like 29% was because they need to, but another, a pretty good chunk of that was because they wanted to.
Yeah.
And I don't think 65 is considered old anymore.
But yeah, growing up, I always thought 65 was super old, and it's like it's not anymore. I mean, I know 65-year-olds. It's crazy.
It's Botox.
Anyways. Yeah. That's exactly it. But no, I mean, and it also helps that I absolutely love what I do, and I love working, and I love the challenge and innovating. So maybe that goes with the not wanting to retire. But anyways,
but let's consider the worst case scenario. That in your mind, the worst case scenario is that you keep working and you live longer than 65. Like, that's not a bad worst case scenario if you're actually saving towards it. And then, like, you hit 65 and you go, I don't really feel like retiring. I'm going to work till I'm 80. But you have enough money to like, imagine what you could do if you saved up enough money to retire at 65, but then you didn't. That'd be
and the people
cool.
who are working because they want to, obviously, I hope they're doing something they really enjoy. Whether that's, quitting their desk job because they have enough money to do that, and then just saying, I'm going to go work somewhere where I would really enjoy that.
Or pulling a John Chavreau and just staying in his job, but telling everybody, I don't need to be here, by the way.
But I'm here.
But I'm here. But I can quit tomorrow.
Pick up a money cent subscription.
So here we go. I think we're moving into final summary, final thoughts. Rob, you final thought, then Sandy, then I'll say goodbye.
Okay, final thoughts on homebuyers plan. I like the plan. I just think there's better options now to utilize your tax-free savings account, especially as a couple. You look at all the room that you could that you have to build it now. If you were 18 in 2009, then you haven't put a dime in your tax-free savings account, you got $31,500 in room plus your spouse or significant other. So there's more money there available if you have that kind of money, if your parents are going to give you $62,000. And I don't think it should be abolished. I think it can work for some people, but I go with the tax-free savings account. Sandy?
I respectfully disagree and say the tax-free savings account is the last place you should be saving your down payment for your home because it gives you no net benefit up front or later on.
Wow, last place, eh?
No, last place.
Well, I have no desire to ever retire, and I'm considering a balanced portfolio, but have no idea how to get a TDE series. First of all, I'm going to develop a budget, and then Sandy's going to work through actually helping me keep that budget, and then maybe but I do have money in my TFSA, and I have to say, I've had 3 people use my ING Direct Orange code. That's $75 into my TFSA. I already own a house, so I don't need to have RSPs because I don't plan on using them to buy another one, and that's the only reason I would have RSPs. So on that note, thanks everybody for joining us on the Because Money podcast. Until next week, we'll stay strong, and you do the same.
Good night.
Good night.
Goodbye.